Hi, I'm Ron Feldman, Executive Vice President at the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, and I'm going to be talking about banking conditions in 9th District states for the first quarter of 2016. And the bottom line is that it was a weak quarter, just as forecasted. So before we get started, let me just remind you what the 9th District is. It's the states of Minnesota, the western portion of Wisconsin, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, the Dakotas, and Montana. And as you can see from this link, if you go to our website, there's a lot more information about banking conditions than what I'm going to cover today. So at the end of last year, we made a forecast for how banks were going to perform in 2016. And generally speaking, I thought it was going to be a flat to slightly worse year than 2015. I thought profits were going to be flat. I thought loan growth was going to vary by state, largely getting it back to its historical level, which is up in some states and maybe a little down in other states. And finally, I thought problem loans were going to get a little worse. So you can see that's overall either a flat to worsening year. Now, what's driving that? Well, first, there's some economic conditions, some headwinds. Second, there are some areas and borrowers in the state, for example, in areas like ag, that we think are going to have some pressure. And then finally, there is just some margin pressure for banks. What's margin pressure? That's just the difference between what a bank earns and what it pays out. And that's been getting smaller and smaller over the years, particularly in a low rate environment. So that's what we thought was going to happen. So what actually happened? So the first quarter, I think, is generally weak as forecasted. So profits were flat or even down for almost all the district states. Loan growth was flat, and when it was up, it was only a little bit for almost all the states. And finally, we saw that problem loans increased across all of those district states. And just if it isn't clear, we're going to be tracking these three metrics: profitability, loan growth, and problem assets. And we're going to be looking at for the median bank in the state. So let's talk a little bit about what this looks like for forecast accuracy. Out of the 18 of the 21 metrics that we follow are within the forecast range. So that looks pretty good, at least as of first quarter. So some examples of this. So first, we're going to look at profitability. This is for the state of North Dakota. And you can see that it's flat. So how can you, let me just be a little clearer on that. So there is a bar at the end of the graph that shows that's the range that we forecasted at the end of last year. And then you're looking at a broken line, a dashed line that shows you what the average is, the historical average for that state. And then you're looking at the dot at the end of that line that shows you what the first quarter was. And you can see it's really right in the middle of the forecast and it's flat. So that's what it looks like for many states in terms of profitability. How about loan growth? Here you can see that for the state of Montana, there was a little bit, it was mostly flat, maybe a little bit down. Again, it's within the range at the upper end, but it's sort of what we were expecting, particularly as you see it's moving down to the historical norm. And again, that was the forecast. And then finally, if you're going to look at problem loans, that's up a little bit from admittedly very low levels, but still up. And here you're seeing it for the state of South Dakota. So let me summarize. We forecasted a relatively weak year compared to last year, flat or not improving for many of the metrics. And as of first quarter, that's what we're seeing. Thank you.